So Amazon Rings of Power is approaching very steadily, and to help it out, there's some promotion material that is now available, including some upcoming covers for Empire Magazine, which is a British magazine devoted mainly to film, although increasingly, like a lot of film magazines, they basically cover everything. What is going on? Well, we're basically seeing a preview of the hobbits and how they'll look, the dwarves, and Galadriel. And it's mostly pretty stupid and horrible. It's not very good. But let's go a step further than the other hate videos that are already going into paroxysms of rage that Amazon is destroying Tolkien, Tolkien is dead, Tolkien has been turned into a feminist, communist, black Chinese zombie destroying the universe. Or whatever they're saying nowadays. Well, I agree. It's definitely very subpar with both the hobbits and dwarves. Galadriel looks fine, but even there you can of course complain that it's not as good as you would want to hope. The one thing with the dwarves, though, I will say is interesting is they're really emphasizing the gold factor. The dwarves really, really love the gold, and that is fairly strongly within the canon that they do have a weakness for gold. There's a lot of hope that the male dwarf will stick to the books, or at least to the appendices, and we're getting a much, much more intimate look at the dwarves because we know only a little bit of the dwarves from the other visual adaptations. We only get really a glimpse at their society and culture, so hopefully we're going to improve that with the Amazon adaptation. Now, in terms of the hobbits, people have already raised primary questions, namely that, well, there shouldn't be hobbits, right, because of the ages and the way that they're split up in the Tolkien universe. The hobbits exist, but they're not supposed to be a part of the central story. But they are alive. It's not that they don't exist. They have to exist, obviously. And as far as I know, there are reassurances that, yes, they're not going to be major parts of the story. They're more like side characters. And I gotta be honest, the Black Hobbit has always got me particularly worried because what he said trying to promote Amazon was really just nutsoid crazy. I couldn't make heads or tails of it. He just sounded like a crazed moronic lunatic. There's some strong doubts why they picked him of all people. I'm not British, so apparently if you're British, you know Lenny, and you know Lenny very well. And everyone loves Lenny. Everyone knows Lenny. Lenny. This is a great choice, but I'm not British, so I don't understand why they picked him. I do understand why they keep picking British people. Seems to be a tax credit thing, although the first couple of seasons actually were filmed in Australia to try to, I guess, get a genetic connection to the Peter Jackson films. And a lot of people who keep raising the Peter Jackson stuff, they apparently don't realize Peter Jackson people are working on this. Some people who worked on Lord of the Rings, the films, are working on this project, but we're not interested in fact-based reporting anymore. We're just going to go where the clicks go, where the money goes, and whatever is stupid, as long as it's popular and people agree with it, and we're willing to pay you, hey, that's fine. And I'm fine with that too, to some extent. But I think we want to be a little careful invoking the spirit of Tolkien, who, as far as I know, had real big issues with industrialization. So I doubt he would be on board with the online commentary industrial complex. But that's me, reading his actual words. But now Galadriel is probably the most interesting case because people are still raising questions that she's in armor, and they got a problem with that. Because why will Galadriel be in armor? Well, maybe because Tolkien does actually use the word Amazonian, so it's not out of the line of reasoning that Amazonian women or warrior women might have armor. I mean, there are serious canonical issues in some places. Depending on specific characters, you can say, yes, it's possible they have on armor, but it's not likely, or it would be under certain special circumstances. But Galadriel having armor, hunting orcs or other monsters, I don't know. Some people are saying her power level is so high, she wouldn't need armor. But I think that's a more general problem, the way people conceptualize the elves with Tolkien. They think that they're kind of like magical superhumans, like they're Marvel superheroes. They're not. They do have powers, but Tolkien always kind of tried to frame it that they have special abilities and skills. They're craftspeople. But we shouldn't think of them as superhuman. They do have traits that appear to be superhuman, right? They live a very long time. They're extremely skilled in many areas. Physically, they're somewhat stronger and faster than the normal human, but he was always very careful that we shouldn't think of these as like gods. They're not gods, nor are they, they're not Superman, they're not even Wonder Woman, but they are a little bit above humans. But think of it in terms of power levels, like the Marvel comics. I don't think he was going down that route. So it's perfectly possible, as an act of prudence, she would have armor on, even if she's tough and could probably withstand an orc hurting her for a while. Why would she take needless cuts and wounds? I don't know. I don't know. I guess it's the framework, what we think of from the books, where we don't get a lot of Galadriel, right? We only get little bits and snippets of Galadriel. It is plausible that she, as a leader of her people, would have on armor. She does look the part, but I think what's already scaring people is the quote that this will not be the same Galadriel. What does that mean? Well, until we have access to the article, we're not going to know. I mean, I just imagine the obvious. This is not Lord of the Rings Galadriel in terms of Peter Jackson. It's not going to be the Bashki, right? It's not going to be that kind of Lord of the Rings either. It's going to be its own thing. So it's going to be a little bit different from the Jackson version. So we're not going to be getting Kate Blanchett. I think that's just stating the obvious. A weird thing that a lot of these YouTubers who are positioning themselves as these kind of right-wing, alt-right people, and that is what they're doing. I mean, if that's what they want to do, that's fine. But, George, the giant idiot, whatever he calls himself, I just find it really strange that he thinks Kate Blanchett would sign up with him. I mean, Kate Blanchett is pretty notoriously on the left. She's pretty outspoken in favor of feminism and in favor of diversity in the film industry. So, and I mean, she played a lesbian, for God's sakes, in a film directed by a gay man. Does he think she's secretly a right-wing nutcase like he is? I have not a clue. But invoking Galadriel from the Peter Jackson version against this one, well, certainly the actress would probably not agree. I've not yet heard a single word of Kate Blanchett endorsing the alt-right. It's a very strange genre that's emerged, standing up for Galadriel, despite what's in the books or even in the films. But there we are. This is the weirdest turn where men who hate women want classic Galadriel, but don't seem to know the books, don't even seem to know the films, but they still want that Galadriel that never existed come back. Where's she going to come from? I have not a clue.